Up to 10 yards longer, that's what Callaway are stating with the new Rogue ST lineup at fairway woods. 3 different heads, all providing different flights and spin characteristics. We want to test all 3 in this particular video. And stay tuned, because we're also going to talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of the lineup of these fairway woods. Okay, so like I said, we've got 3 different heads we're going to take a look at. So we've got the Rogue ST Max, the standard Max version, which is a little bit more of that mid-launch, low spin characteristics. We've got the LS, which obviously stands for low spin, low launch, low spin, maybe for that faster play, a little bit more smaller compact head. And then we've got the Max D, which is a bit more of a draw bias characteristics, a bit more of a high launch and a mid sort of spin. Okay, so we're going to kick things off with the standard Max. I think this is probably going to be the one that suits the majority of golfers out there. You know, it's providing maximum forgiveness. We've got high ball speeds, we've got that low spin, you know, ultimately getting that distance as well as that high forgiveness levels, which we should talk about. Very sort of similar process to what we've seen with the driver heads as well. So these are all 3 woods that I've got. This is a 15 degree and it's non-adjustable, which we're going to talk a little bit about later in this video. First impressions as we sit it down by the golf ball, it's a really nice sitting golf club. It sits very square actually, which I like. Again, I don't like anything sort of toed in or pointing left. I know that can be beneficial for certain types of golfers, maybe who has that left to right shape or that slice in the game, but that sits very, very nice and square. We've got that matte finish as we've seen with the drivers. That obviously carries on into the fairway woods. And what seems to be quite a low profile head, which sometimes gives you the confidence of getting this ball up and away. Obviously I'm going to hit these off the ground, which I always like to test 3 woods off the ground. It's always a more difficult situation of hitting these off the fairway as opposed to a tee. And it does look like you can get this sort of airborne, you know, just the way that depth of the head just sits behind that golf ball. Okay, that's a good strike. I've just pushed that up that right hand side, but a decent strike, launched very easily there. Quite a high ball flight, obviously a little bit pushy, tends to flight it a little bit higher anyway. Yeah, I got to 57, just a little bit of spin with that slightly open club face, but a nice feel straight away off the club face. Good sound. Right, that was a little bit of a toe one. That wasn't the greatest of strikes. They're a little bit low, a little bit toe. Definitely sort of feel that, but the result is pretty good. So let's talk a little bit about the technology. So we've got that jailbreak that we see in the drivers, but now it's a little bit different in the fairway woods, and it's what we call bat wings. Obviously, every fairway wood needs some bat wings, doesn't it? So basically what they're saying there is the jailbreak is sort of split very much into the toe and the heel, supporting the crown and the sole, so creating a stiffness there, but while maintaining the flex in the club face, obviously those high ball speeds. And like the driver, we're seeing that tungsten speed cartridge, that gold plate, and that is now positioned sort of down and forward, so that obviously the heavy weight of tungsten being pushed forward towards the club face, obviously pushing centre of gravity in that direction, which is going to lower spin and increase ball speed. Okay, again, a little bit off the bottom, and that's a typical strike I think a lot of golfers will find when they're hitting fairway wood, especially that maybe that 3 wood off the ground, is you tend to get that sort of low in the club face in terms of that strike. Obviously you can create a little bit of spin. You can see that 3-9, that spin goes up from that strike, but it's launched, it's got away. And I think that's the good thing with I think maybe with having that little bit of weight forward, is it allows you to keep that ball speed up when you're just slightly missing it away from that centre of gravity of the club head. Another thing that might just help with those slightly low face is this cup face technology that we've seen probably in many generations now with Callaway, but we've got that face that sort of just wraps around on the sole as well as on that crown, just creating those higher ball speeds on those miss hits. Again, it's a really nice ball flight. Again, that's just a tiny bit low in that club face. Always a miss for me with a fairway wood, but it's done pretty well, hasn't it? You know, so I'm just thinking there, you know, you get on, I mean, this is a perfectly flat lie on a mat, isn't it? And it's obviously it's a tight lie, but it's perfectly flat. Now, obviously you get on that golf course, we see sort of ball below the feet, you know, maybe that ball just sat sometimes, that little depression, maybe just getting off that fairway. Lies aren't always perfect, so I would always like to sort of see a fairway wood a bit like this really. When you sit it down by the golf ball, it's that more of that lower profile. I wouldn't want that head to be too sort of deep, because then when I put it behind the ball, it just looks like I'm going to struggle to get it launched again, especially in those indifferent lies that we would see on the golf course. A little bit on the toe, just moved a touch up the left, but it's a really nice ball flight. I like the sound of it, as I've said with the drivers, you know, the sound is really, really good. I think the look and the feel of the club face is really good. We've got some grooves on the club faces, which will change slightly as we work into the other models. Now, availability in the Max head, there's a lot of options here. So we've got the 3 wood, We've got the 3HL, which is effectively like your 4 wood at 16.5 degrees. We've got the 5 wood, the famous Heaven wood, 7 wood, 9 wood, and also the famous 11 wood, which they'd done years ago, and that has made a comeback. I think quite a popular option. Maybe if the golfers maybe don't want to have that hybrid in the bags, prefer that sort of fairway wood, I think always be a nice little option. Right, so just switching over now. So we're going to the Max D. So this is a bit more of a draw biased club in the bag now. So maybe for that golfer who struggles to control that left to right shape as a right-handed golfer, that slice, maybe this draw with that more weight in the heel of the golf club is just going to help to try and square that club face and obviously try and reduce that shape a little bit. So what's different with the D in comparison to the standard Max? So really a couple of things. A lot of the technology is the same, jailbreak, everything like that, the speed cartridge in there. We've just now got that weight in the heel, so that carbon has just been taken out of that heel section of the golf club on the sole, replaced with, I'm guessing it's titanium to be honest, so obviously just a bit more weight, creating that more draw bias sort of feature. It sits a little bit more closed now, and the line angle's a little bit more upright. Again, two key things when trying to reduce a sort of right miss for that golfer. This is the most forgiving fairway wood out of the three. It's the highest launching and the highest spinning is what Callaway are saying, so maybe ideal for that slower swing speed who sometimes struggles to launch the golf ball a little bit, wants to get some spin on it to keep it in the air to obviously maximise their distance. As standard, this is a 3-wood, but comes at 16 degrees of loft, so it's 1 degree more than what we see in the standard one. Again, it's non-adjustable in that neck sleeve. Yeah, and there we go. There's a pretty much a straight sort of pull for me. I think obviously with that lie angle, the club face being a little bit more left, it's not a club that I would really sort of promote myself, to be honest. Ooh, that's a bit off the bottom, but again, it's launched and it's up that left-hand side. So we don't really need to hit too many more with that. We know probably what it's going to try and promote in terms of the Max D head. Okay, so finally we're going to move into the LS. So obviously that stands for low spin, much more compact head we see. We see an additional screw on the sole position now forward. So clearly it's going to promote a lower launch and a lower spin. Maybe for those golfers with maybe a faster club head speed who's looking for that little bit lower spin characteristics, maybe that little bit of a lower launch there. So typically it is more into those faster club head speeds. So a bit more of a neutral ball flight is what Callaway are saying. But, and there's a big but here, and I don't know whether this is just this particular one I've got in my hands, but when I sit that down, it sits closed. And straight away that's putting me off completely. For a more neutral ball flight is what Callaway is saying, that just looks like it's going to go left. That's very similar closing of what I've just seen in that draw head, which is a little bit disappointing. As I say, it might just be the one I've got, it might just not sit right. And this brings me on to the point of maybe just the disadvantages of having a glued and not that adjustable neck sleeve offering. You know, these are coming in at sort of £269, which is obviously in that typical area we see with fairway woods now, but many other brands are offering adjustability to the neck sleeve. Callaway aren't. So I can't do anything about that. You know, that I can't move that back and try and adjust the hosel to get the face to sit how I would like it. I'm going to be stuck with that, and that is a little bit off-putting. As I say, it might just be this particular one I've got in my hands, I don't know, but a little bit disappointing. But a beautiful shape of the head, obviously a lot more compact and just a little bit deeper now. So when I put that down by the golf ball, it looks straight away like it's a little bit harder to get that ball up in the air. Oh, I've just hit that off the toe and that's peeled up the left. But it's launched absolutely fine, to be honest. I struck that okay in terms of up the club face. It felt like a little bit toe. Trying to show it as quite central, it felt a little bit toey. Now, what's going to try and create a little bit more of that low spin is an extra screw we've got in the front. So we've got the speed cartridge, the gold plate, as we've seen it, which is, I think it's a gram heavier than the other two models we've just talked about, so it's only 1 gram. But there's that additional screw that just sits behind the speed cartridge, which is 5 grams. So we've got an additional 6 grams of weight obviously being pushed now more forward, which, as we know, would tend to see a lower launch and a little bit of a lower spin characteristics. Plus the head from the front to the back isn't as long. So again, that's squeezing that weight a little bit more forward in the club head. Again, that's felt like a good strike. It's just moving up that left-hand side, and I just don't know whether that's because that face is sit a little bit closed. It just feels like I'm going to hit that shot. The spin's low, you know, or lower than what we've just seen. See 2.4, so it's definitely giving me that lower spin characteristics. And there's me trying to hold that off. You know, I'm trying to stop that left shot there, and I'll just bail it out to the right. It's just a little bit disappointing for me. As I say, it could be just this particular one I've got. Others might sit square, we don't know. has a little bit heel, yeah, feel that. That's obviously spun up and peeled a little bit. So probably just obviously going to see that little bit less forgiveness. We've got sacrifice down, as we move more weight down and forward. I think we're obviously going to take a little bit of hit on that forgiveness levels in comparison to the Max versions. I think personally I feel a little bit more comfortable with the Max head, to be honest. For me, you know, I like the shaping of that LS head, but to be honest, when I put them side by side, do you know what, there's not a massive amount different, I don't think, with the size of the head from what I can see. Maybe a smidge bigger on the Max. The Max D is definitely a bigger head. A little bit bottom, a little bit cutty, touch heel. That's where that cut's going to come from. That'll spin up a little bit more. That, yeah, there we go. That's just that low heel strike. It just doesn't feel as stable as we've seen in the Max for obvious reasons. Okay, let's try and check a few numbers out. Okay, so let's look at the numbers. So we've got the Max on the bottom. So you see 106 club head speed, 156 ball, 11 launch, 333 spin, 255 average on the carry number. So some pretty decent numbers there. Again, I like the way that I could feel like I can launch that a little bit easy, the confidence behind it, a little bit of forgiveness there as well. Obviously just a couple of shots hit with a draw, just to give that idea. We did see that definitely move up that left hand side a little bit more, spin a little bit higher, which is what Callaway are promoting on that. Maybe didn't strike those great, but they got up and away, but definitely worked up that left side for any golfers wanting to try and sort of see that shape. Then moving into the LS, I'm a little bit disappointed with this. Me personally, I was excited to see this, and you know, it's my sort of club that I'd really sort of feel like I want in the golf bag in a way if I was going to choose a 3-wood. 106, 155, see 12 launch, didn't do so bad on the launch there, but definitely worked up that left hand side, just the way that club sat. A couple of little missed strikes, his spin came up, but the better strikes was in that lower bracket, which obviously then got me that little bit extra sort of carry distance. Okay, push comments down below, let me know your thoughts on the lineup of the Rogue ST fairway woods. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have, hit that like button, smash the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and we'll catch up with you all very soon.